Well, hello there. We are Joe,
And Ned,
and we are going with our five most influential cards that have affected us when we played Magic, and one honorable mention. These are not in any particular order, but these are cards that really affected us in one way or the other.
yeah. So in terms of play style, Clear the Mind has had a big impact on me because target player shuffles their graveyard into their library, draw a card. This card has made me play a lot more things that force exile because I don't want them coming back from the graveyard, even if you do manage to play Clear the Mind.
And in my play style, this card could work as an honorable mention, but I don't have it because of one of my top cards, which again does a lot of reshuffling graveyard into the library, which me and Ned both have gone to the point where, yeah, we do a lot of stuff from graveyard to the deck. Anyway, that's Ned's honorable mention. In mine, don't forget, it also draws a card.
Right, I said that.
Yeah, you probably did. I'm not awake yet. Anyway, my honorable mention is actually a planeswalker, and it's Nisa who shakes the world. Whenever you tap a forest for mana, add an additional green. Now, Ned knows as well as I do, I love green. I grew up on green when I first started playing Magic. Green was pretty much my primary color. Then elves got involved, and that's all she wrote. She's Nisa, who shakes the world, is a newer planeswalker, but she is 5 to play, and she's legendary. And then she has two abilities. First one is a +1. Put three 1/1 counters on up to one target creature, non-creature land you control. Untap it, and it becomes a 0/0 elemental creature with vigilance and haste that's still land. That's very handy when you're playing creatures and you really want to come in and attack. You change the land into a giant creature or a bigger creature, and then you can really do some serious damage, especially when it has haste and vigilance. It's also a really good blocker. The -8 ability is when you get an emblem that lands you control have indestructible. Search your library for any number of forest cards, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and shuffle your library. There is nothing that's going to clear out your deck faster than that ability right there, if you can get her to ultimate. It's beautiful. And she already starts off with 5, so it don't take long for her to get up to 8.
And the other advantage to that is because it's an emblem, it's never going away. So, regardless of what your opponent does to you, they cannot make your emblems go away.
It is a beautiful thing. Obviously, you want to make sure you have her protected, but she is just splendid. All right, Ned, let's go to your top card there, and it is right there.
Counterspell. This card has the most influence on me in a negative way. I hate this card, and it goes all the way back to when there were only two formats in Magic the Gathering. And my play style is red burn, and the first time I ran against a blue deck, they had close to a dozen spells that did a counter ability. And it was making me very angry. And I'm to a point now where it feels almost immoral for me to put counter spells into any deck that I have. I do have some in a few of my commander decks, mostly because they help me do other things, be it scrying or 1/1 counters. But yes, this card has always irritated me, and even now I still don't feel right when I do play them.
I know I have a couple decks that have a bunch of counter spells in them, so I know that irks you, and it's nothing personal.
Yeah, yeah, like I say, it's just it bothers me because it feels like a cop out. I can't stop you from doing what you do any other way, so I'm just going to run counter spells. There are plenty of things in Magic that will stop your opponent from doing what they're trying to do. You don't have to play counter spells, but people do, and I understand why. I just don't like it.
Fully understand. All right, going back to Ned's honorable mention, I said I'd get back to it, and here's where it comes into play. Elixir of Immortality is probably one of my most impactful cards. Ned can atone to this because I have it virtually in any deck I can put in. It's always in there. It is a 1 mana card, so it is super cheap to play. And again, this is probably the top reason why Ned does Exile versus discard or destroy, because of the fact that you can pay 2 mana, tap it, gain 5 life. That's always handy. Then you can shuffle this and the rest of your cards back into your library. There is nothing more satisfying when you are getting a bad draw and you have this card in opening hand, or even shortly after you start the game, and you get to reshuffle everything and shuffle your deck and hopefully get a better draw on the next shuffle. But that 5 life has been helpful, but throwing my cards back into my library when they're being discarded, especially if it's a creature heavy deck like elves or something, there is nothing better than being able to just put that stuff and getting a restart.
It's incredibly useful. I have it in several of my decks as well for all the reasons you already said. It's very easy to play. You gain life from it, and you shuffle the grave back into the library. Why would anybody say no to that?
It's cheap, easy, and personally it's annoying and fun at the same time. So we're going to move on to your next one.
Yes, Red Sun Zenith.
It is a beautiful card.
1 red and X. Red Sun Zenith deals X damage to target creature or player. That's actually been errated to any target, because when it was first printed, planeswalkers had not been invented. So you can target a planeswalker with this as well. If a creature dealt damage this way would be put into a graveyard this turn, exile it instead, shuffle Red Sun Zenith into the owner's library. Red Burn is my play style. I've said that earlier, and I've said that in other podcasts. So dealing X damage is fantastic. If the X damage gets a kill on the creature, it goes to exile. Also fantastic. And you get to shuffle it back into your library after it's played. Again, excellent card. So if you're playing red, if I'm playing red, Red Sun Zenith is in the deck. That's just where it belongs.
Really, any deck that has X in it, or any red card that's burned that has X in it is always good. But being able to, this one is above and beyond the rest because of the reshuffle. I agree with you. There's other Zenith cards too that also do different things, and all the Zenith cards are pretty fun. But yeah, that burn is just nasty. I know I've been on the receiving end of a couple of your decks with Red Sun Zenith in it and your burn, and I know you don't like the counter spell. I don't like the burn spells. So yeah, it's not a fun thing. But it works for you, and it is a really good burn card, and I have in a couple of my decks too. So my next one goes on to a group of 3 cards. I'm going to show one at a time, and then I'll slowly get to the next one as I talk about it, because they all do the exact same thing. 2 of them are white, 1 of them is a green. I'll hit the 2 white ones first and the green one, but I cannot go one above the other because they are sisters and they do the exact same thing. They are 1/1s for 1, so you can't beat the price. They're small, they're easy, and they're cheap, and they're free. But you have the Soul's Attendant, you have a Soul Warden, and then you have Essence Warden. They are considered the Soul Sisters. And if you're playing white and you're playing a lot of creatures and you're trying to go for a little bit of life gain or even a lot, then you want the Soul Warden or the Soul Attendant. And if you're going, I know if I'm playing a lot of green decks, like I have a elf token deck or an elf deck, Essence Warden is in that also. They do the exact same thing. 1 mana, of their chosen color, 1/1, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, it doesn't matter if it's your creature, an opponent's creature, a token, a non-token, whatever it is, you gain a life.
And the other nice thing about that is it doesn't matter how the creature comes into play. It doesn't have to be a cast. If you have a Elvish Piper, for example, you pay a green, tap it, throw a creature from hand onto the battlefield, it will still trigger the Soul Warden and Soul Attendant.
Or the Essence Warden, absolutely. If you're doing a life gain deck, it is a nasty combo. And then there's also another card with Norin, who every time somebody plays a creature, or plays a spell, or attacks, he blinks out. So every time he comes back in, that's another life gained. So yeah, the Soul Sisters are just a fun way to gain a bunch of life. They're small, they're cheap, and they're easy to get rid of. But when they stay on the field, they gain you a crap load of life. Your next one is also one that's good in any black deck, and it's cheap and easy, but here you go.
Royal Assassin. 2 black, 1 colorless. He's a 1/1. Tap, destroy target tapped creature. This guy has been around since the beginning of Magic the Gathering, and I absolutely fell in love with it way back in 1994 when I first started playing. He was restricted back then for obvious reasons, but I still wanted him in every deck that had black. It's fantastic. You destroy target tapped creature just by tapping him. So when your opponents declare their attack, instant death, unless the creature has vigilance. But there are ways of getting around that too. Icy Manipulator immediately comes to mind, but there are plenty of other ways to tap your opponent's creatures and then bump them off with the Assassin.
I know you built a deck for me a long time ago when I first started, and one of the things was with this card, it was pretty much you went and destroyed the other person's deck, and then I'd use Liliana to bring them all back on my side of the battlefield. And Royal Assassin is definitely a very, very powerful card, no questions asked. The next one I have is another Planeswalker. This one is an epitome to any creature, any elf deck, I should say. And as soon as I came across her, when I was doing my first elf deck, she's the first one I targeted that was a Planeswalker. She was hard to find. She is very hard because she was only produced for a commander deck pre-con, so she's really hard to find. But I love what she does. Again, it's a 5, 3 and 2 green for Freyalise, Llanowar's Fury, Planeswalker, and she has 3 abilities. First one, she starts off with 3, but in 3 turns you can get her up to more than enough to get her ultimate done, and her ultimate's really strong. And she can also be your commander. The +2, put a 1/1 green elf druid creature token onto the battlefield with tap, add a green to your mana pool. Llanowar Elf comes to mind. We always call her the Llanowar Elf. -2, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I've used that on numerous occasions. And then the -6 is wonderful. It's draw a card for each green creature you control. I have almost decked out with that almost on a couple times too, when I have got the ultimate activated. She is beautiful, and again, when you're playing green, my elf deck especially, I mean, she is just a beast.
Yeah, she's a very useful card, and that she has 3 abilities is also a selling point. There are some planeswalkers that only have 1 or 2 abilities, but if you can get a 3 and that pull the trigger on that ultimate even once, you can really tilt the scales in your favor.
I know, I think I had an Merfolk deck, and I was playing green-blue with it, and I had a Laboratory Maniac, and I got that ultimate to trigger. I don't remember if it was against Macy or somebody else, because they just missed the fact I had Freyalise out. But I know there's at least twice I had the ultimate happen, and I decked out with a Laboratory Maniac. I got a win on the spot. It was great. Alright, we're on number 4 for you, Ned. That is over here, right there.
Settle the Wreckage. This card was first printed in the Ixalan expansion, and I absolutely love it. You pay 2 white and 2 colorless, exile all attacking creatures target player controls. That player may search his or her library for that many basic lands, put them onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle the library. Even with all of that, it still always works to my advantage because you're exiling the attacking creatures, not just destroying them. Again, I like exile because of reasons we've already mentioned, and 2 cards that will shuffle your grave back into the library. Sending the cards to exile is a great play, and there have been times when you and I have played and you thought you had me, and I dropped Settle the Wreckage, and it essentially flipped the game because you lost all of those attacking creatures permanently.
Yeah, sometimes I just don't quite keep track of what's open, and I think I can get away with it. And yeah, I know there was at least a couple times that you did hit me with it, and I thought I only saw you with 1 green open and or white open, and you ended up having 2 white open. So yeah, you got me, and I earned that. I also know there was once or twice, I don't remember exactly, but I was playing a white deck, and I had a bunch of tokens out, and I don't remember if it was against you or somebody else. But I remember I attacked. I was really short on. I had 4 lands and I needed more lands, and I don't think, but I ended up using that card on myself to get rid of my attacking tokens because I needed lands. And I mean, what better way to get lands out than to do that? And I remember using that on myself for on my tokens. And I think I pulled out about 4 or 5. At that point was able to play everything in my hand, but man, that was a pain in the butt until that point. All right, so we're going to move on to my number 4. This is pretty much one of my first mainstay decks that I had in tournament forms. My first tournaments I did that actually got results was with this card. Excuse me. When I first started off, it was around the time that Other Revolt was out. And my first few cards I tried to throw a couple decks together. They really weren't worth anything. And I thought they were decent because they were my first deck, and I went into tournaments, and of course I went into like F&M mainly, and I was getting smoked by everybody, and it was like not a surprise. So I came across this card in an energy deck that was green and red, and unless I went against some kind of energy control deck, it was a super strong deck. I could hit it, come out fast, I could hit fast, and when I got to it, I never won a tournament because I ended up losing the energy control, but Electric Static Pumbler was the key to that deck. He is a 3 mana to play. He's only a 1/1, but whenever he enters the battlefield, you get 3 energy. That is an Ether Revolt or Kaladesh thing where it was kind of only in those 2 sets because that was a block and they went together. But you could pay 3 energy, and the Pumbler gets +X till the turn where X is its power. So in essence, every time you did 3 energy, you doubled its power. And it took a couple shots, but when you got it to the point, you could literally take it up to 20 life. And then there's another card that was called Fling. And you can just fling at your opponent and get an automatic win. And that's usually what I went for. Very strong card. When it's used right. For a 1/1, that sucker is a game winner on its own. Obviously, the deck is built around gaining energy, but yeah, it was. I would fling it, or I would attack with it, and then if I was going to get it destroyed, then I would fling it. So very, very powerful, very fun, and that deck was really fun.
I sort of remember that deck, and it eventually brought me back into Magic, and I was building red burn decks at the time, and yeah, the fling ability. Um, okay, the creature died, but he still managed to do his damage because fling happens at instant speed, where most of the red burn spells, or at least half of the ones I play, are usually sorceries.
Mm-hmm. So I could get him to attack, and if you went to destroy him, then I could just turn around and use all the energy, doubles power, doubles power, doubles power, doubles power, get it 20 flinging at you, and that was game. Yeah,
Correct.
that was one of those cards that was just, I know for you, it was kind of a pain. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that was a really strong deck, and it was really fun. Anyway, we're going to your last one, and there you go.
Call to the Feast. 2 colorless, 1 black, 1 white. Create 3 1/1 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink. When I came back into Magic, it was just before the Ixalan cards were printed, and this one card inspired me to build a um, standard vampire deck, and also after playing your commander deck, Edgar Markov was the commander. I wanted one of my own, and Call to the Feast was one of the first cards I put into my Edgar Markov deck because, again, it's 3 1/1 tokens and they have lifelink.
Yep.
So, before Ixalan came around, I don't think there were any white cards within the vampire tribe, but it was a really good concept. I like the idea of black and white vampires, and it works. Even now, Edgar Markov is still one of the best commander decks around.
And I do remember you took your black white standard vampires and made it into a modern deck, and that thing still goes really strong. So I also like the written text underneath of it. By the law of church and crown, vampires feed only on the blood of the guilty, those declared heretics, rebels, or enemies of war. I don't know why I like that subtext there. I always have. It's one of the few I actually pay attention to besides the canon with the
Right.
goblins. Anyway, this is my last one. Agent of Treachery. This one came out. When did that one come out?
I'm not sure when it was first printed.
Ha! I think it came out close to the same time as Ixalan, so it was. I don't think it was Ixalan.
Dominaria?
I think it was Dominaria. But anyway, I'd have to go back and look. I don't remember. But anyway, this is really, really impactful because I've been trying ever since then. I've been trying to build a deck, and I had a couple decks that were creature stealing or just stealing, but I've done a couple different, even standard and other decks where he is a key piece to it. And just what he does is fantastic. He's expensive and he doesn't have that big of life, but he is fantastic. And if you can blink him, that is even better. But it's Agent of Treachery, 5 and 2 blue, and he is a creature human rogue. So he fits in a lot of different categories for deck building, whether it's tribal or not. But when Agent of Treachery enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. That is any permanent, any land, any sorcery, any, not sorcery, but any land, any enchantment, any creature, any planeswalker, artifact. I mean, anything on the board that does not have hexproof is a target. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. I mean, he does so much.
Yeah, he's a neat effect, and when you can make him go, it's a huge benefit to you and a huge hindrance to the opponent. There are plenty of things that can copy creatures within the blue color, so again, if you're copying him, he's essentially entering the battlefield again, so you can get those 3 permanents and start doing his thing.
I know when I was in Standard, I had another red card that came with him, and that was a great combo, but it was called Mirror March. And whenever Mirror March was on the board and he hit the board, you'd flip a coin, and that forever, as long as you kept winning the coin flip, you kept getting copies of him. The copies will go away after combat, or at the end of your turn, I mean. But each copy would steal something. So I actually have had games where I actually stole the complete board, and the first thing I targeted was their lands. You can't play lands, you don't have a fight. And I know there was one game I played against somebody, and I was playing on Arena, and I threw down the Mirror March, and he's like, he had a counter deck, and he didn't counter it. Biggest mistake he made, because I turned around through Agent of Treachery, which he didn't even, which at that point I think I played something else to draw him out to play his counter spell, because I knew he had one. And then I played Agent Treachery after that. I mean, it was a longer game. I had a lot of control in the deck. But when I got the Agent Treachery down, I literally stole every single one of his lands and any bigger of his creatures. So he literally didn't have a single play. As soon as I got everything on my side of the board, he scooped. This guy's not usually a game winner. But when he comes down, if you can get him to do his thing on multiple occasions, yeah, that can be very quickly game over. Not much else to say. It's just a powerful, powerful card. So these are our top 5 and honorable mention of most impactful decks in our career of playing Magic. And we thought we'd share our joy and love of the game with you that way. And guys, please like, share, and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up. That was bigger than I thought. And you guys enjoy and be blessed.